So today I am taking this control panel off and installing the new Skutt touchscreen. I've got my mini screwdriver, my regular screwdriver, the instructions, the new control pad. My kiln has been shut off. I have a helper, and here we go. So we're gonna be doing this together. I might go back and edit it and take out all the parts where I mess up, but let's see what we got. So on this little new conversion board that the digital screen comes with, they have these little plugs, and you'll see it says safety, output 1, output 2, output 3, AC1, C-tap, and so on. And then if you look at the board that's originally installed in your kiln, let's see if I can get it to focus here. It has the same things. It doesn't actually look the same, it's not laid out in the same way, but the names are the same. So we're going to go ahead and take these red wires off of there very delicately and then put them on to here. And in the directions it says to go one at a time. I highly recommend that idea, because otherwise, how are you going to know which one goes where? So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. By the power of YouTube, I have removed all of the feeder wires going to the metal pins there and reinstalled them on this that had come with the new control pad. A few things to note. You want to make sure that you guys have a pair of pliers when you're doing this. Those were a pain in the booty to get off of there. In fact, I cut my finger trying to get one of them off on a sharp piece of metal. So I highly recommend a small pair of pliers. And then I did them like the directions said, one at a time, and reinstalled them on this new board so they all matched up. Next, it says to remove the current sensor from the control board with a skinny slotted screwdriver, loosen the 2 screws and set it aside to reinstall, and then remove the thermocouple wires, loosen the leads, and remove the wires from the block. So first I'm going to go ahead and take my skinny slotted screwdriver, and I'm going to remove this part here. Wish me luck. Okay, so I've loosened those screws, and as you can see, that just pops out. That is the current sensor. And then it said to remove the thermocouple wires, but before I do that, I went ahead and took some painter's tape and labeled those TC1, TC2, and TC3, and I'm getting those numbers from where they're lined up on the current board. And then I'm going to go ahead and remove all of those wires so that this will then be free from the kiln. Okay, I've unscrewed all of the thermocouple wires, and they're hanging and labeled. All the red wires are attached to the new control thingamajigger. The current sensor has been removed. The old motherboard is here and going inside this plastic bag they have provided, and will go tucked away on a shelf just in case something happens and we need it at a future day. Okay, so now we're ready to hook up the new touchscreen. The first thing that they're asking you to do is to put the thermocouple wires that you have disconnected and labeled into their new spot, which is going to be on the back here inside those holes. I'm assuming it's going to go that way because this hangs that way. If you were to take it out and it were to be hanging down, you would want the wires to come out there. Also, that's the only way they can go in. Okay, so I have all of the thermocouple wires hooked up. The numbers are corresponding to the numbers here. The red wire is going into the port that says red. The yellow is going into the port that has a plus sign. The amount of wire that was sticking out of the ends of these was almost double the length of this, because originally it was going around the screw on the other motherboard. So I actually just took the wire and bent it in half and then jammed it in there and screwed it down. That way I didn't have to cut any off, and also it made a tighter connection. It was fairly simple, and I'm ready to move on to the next step, which is install the current sensor the same way you removed it, but in reverse. Make sure the wires are facing down as shown in the picture. All right. I'm going to put that here. That was fairly simple. I put it back into the block labeled current. It says to make sure the wires are facing down. At first I thought that meant maybe those were supposed to be on the lower half, but after looking at the picture and lining it up, hold on one second, I realized that they just meant facing down. So when the board is up, those wires are facing down. So now we are on to the next step. The donut-shaped end of the current sensor needs to have one phase wire passing through it for each powered section. 2 wires from the same section would cancel each other out and you'd get a reading of 0. All right, let's figure out what that means next. Okay, so this, I'm 90% sure, means that that thing there is supposed to have 3 wires passing through it if it has 3 sections, which it does. I don't actually think that means I have to do anything about it, but I've read it a few times now and that seems right. So on to the next section. Number 9 is install the conversion board. One end of the board fits over the 10-pin connection, the other end with 2 post snaps into these holes. Ugh, I think this is the problematic area where it can get a little tricky. So start with the 10-pin side and line it up so all the pins are in the right place. This is a little tricky, haha! So take your time and be careful not to bend any pins. With the pin side lined up, but not all the way on, line up the 2 posts and snap on both ends, not at the same time. Okay, great. If you mess this up, your kiln will be ruined. Start over. Go back to start. Do not pass go. Do not collect $100. Okay, I'm gonna turn this off and see if I can figure out what's going on, and I'll be back. Okay, so I've read it a few times, and I think what it means is that this end is gonna go on top of those pins. These 2 white plastic things are gonna go in these 2 holes. And they're wanting you to line it up first and then snap it down into place so that none of those pins are bent. Here we go. Okay, that was the most stressful part of the whole thing. Honestly, it wasn't that difficult. I got it on there pretty easily. But just the fact that they say if you turn the kiln on and it's plugged in wrong, you're gonna mess up the whole thing is a little stressful. Also, holding it there was tricky. Maybe get some help for that part. Have somebody hold this thing upward so that you can press down on there. Otherwise, if you're alone, I kind of rested one end of it here, the other end of it on my chest, and kind of just got real close. Next, I'm going to take the blue tape off and reinstall this back into here and screw it back on. Alright, it's all installed. Let's see if it works. Flip the breaker. You guys keep an eye on the screen for me. See if anything blows up. Looks good. Hopefully that was helpful, you guys. So make sure you have your directions and all the parts you need. It was fairly simple, and I'm excited to get using this new touchscreen.